of things. And he explicitly says that the things that God does in those regards, we do in a much lesser degree, at a much smaller level. We make things much smaller than what God has made. But we make unified, individual, organized things of a bodily sort. Now, let me point up a couple of things about that. If you will turn in the monadology to, let's see, to page 212, 213. 212, 213. First of all, paragraph 74, philosophers have greatly puzzled over the origin of forms or souls. But today we know by examination of plants, insects, and animals that the organic bodies of nature are not products of chaos or putrefaction, spontaneous generation, but always come from seeds, in which seeds there was some pre-formation. Okay? It's been thought that not only the organic body was there before conception, but also the soul in this body. In a word, the living animal itself. And that by means of conception, this animal has merely been prepared for a great transformation to become an animal of another kind. Something similar is seen outside of birth, as when worms, caterpillars, worms become flies and caterpillars become butterflies. The transformation to a different kind of being. Now, what he's dealing with here, and he names it later on, is the animalculism of the day. The view that the offspring in miniature, body and soul, is contained in the father's seed. Complete. So that in that sense, the soul monad is an outgrowth of the soul monad of the father, which was the outgrowth. Okay? And you recall that we made mention of this back when we were talking about the Stoics, because this was the basis for the Stoic traducian theory of the transmission of the soul and the origin of the individual soul. Now, here's Leibniz then adopting this kind of animalculism. Dot, this is your field. Can you tell us, there was a renewal of this kind of approach, wasn't there, in this juncture in history? Can you give us the rough picture? Okay. Little animalcules. There you go.
The very thing they're saying is true here. These attributes are although we didn't know what they were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this is part of the philosophical view known as vitalism, which views life as something distinct from simply physical, chemical things. Okay, and vitalism continued to flourish, really, until about the mid-20th century.
It was concomitant with the development of the microscope, which opened up that new world of life that had not been observed.
Great. Spinoza's lenses, in other words. Okay. This is his view then of the origin of souls, including human souls, spirits.
The sperm contains the soul
and the body.
But then where does the female?
Provides a nice warm place for it to grow.
Is there the difference between traditionism and animalculism? Animalculism has the body and soul in miniature, whereas traditionism just has the seed of development? Or am I?
Now, say that again.
Traditionism just has the seed that will develop into, or does traditional theory?
No, I'm roughly identifying these two views. In biology, talking about genetics, okay, animalculism is the name that's used for this view. In theology, talking about the transmission or the origin of the individual soul, traducianism, the view that it is transmitted, is the name that's used. But traducianism, introduced into Christian thought by Tertullian, you see, was really an adoption of the Stoic view, which was a kind of animalculism. Okay, and Leibinz seems to be pointing in that same direction. Okay. And obviously the development of modern genetics changes the picture significantly. Biological vitalism is a rarity now. In the 1940s, it was quite popular in some circles, particularly in France. Yeah. 50 years makes quite a difference. Paragraph 75. This comes out again. The animals, some of which are raised by conception to the grade of larger animals, may be called spermatic. These among them which remain in their class, that is the most part, are born, multiply, and are destroyed like large animals. It's only a small number of chosen ones that pass to a larger theatre, and so forth. This is only half the truth. I've therefore held that if the animal never commences by natural means, neither does it end by natural means, that not only will there be no birth, there would be no utter destruction nor death, strictly speaking, and so forth. Let's see. Then in paragraph 80, he begins to criticize Descartes, and notice the difference. Descartes recognizes that souls cannot impart any force to bodies, because there's always the same quantity of force in matter. Yeah. Nevertheless, he believed the soul could change the direction of bodies, external cause only. Nevertheless, he believed that the soul could change the direction of bodies. This was because in his day, the law of nature, which affirms the conservation of the same total direction in matter, wasn't known. If he had known this, he would have lighted upon my system of pre-established harmony rather than causal interaction. According to this system, bodies act as if, which is impossible, there were no souls, and souls act as if there were no bodies, and both act as if each influenced the other. Poor old Descartes. As to spirits, or rational souls, although I find that the same thing that I've stated, namely that they begin and end only with the world, holds good at bottom with regard to all living beings and animals, yet there's this peculiarity in rational animals that they're spermatic animalcules, there's your word, as long as they remain such, have only ordinary or sensitive souls. Okay, that low degree of perception. But as soon as those which are, so to speak, elected, yeah, he is a Protestant Calvinist, those which are elected attain by actual conception to human nature, God does the selection, their sensitive souls are elevated to the rank of reason and to the prerogative of spirits. Among other differences which exist between ordinary souls and minds or spirits is this also. Souls in general are living mirrors or images of the universe of creatures. Their nature is the mirror. But minds or spirits, in addition, are images of the divinity itself. We're in the image of God, able to know the system of the universe and imitate something of it by architectonic samples, each mind being like a little divinity in its own department. Spirits are capable, therefore, of entering into a sort of society with God, so that he is a father to its children. And so the idea of the city of God, a universal monarchy, a moral world within the natural world, the most divine of the works of God, and so forth. So the role of mind or spirit comes through pretty plainly. Now, hopefully two further things. What about epistemology? This is part of the mind-body question. And I've already said that with windowless monads, the conscious awarenesses arise from within rather than from without. Yeah, and he's pretty plain that soul monads, at most, can have sense perception and lingering memories. Animals can have sense perception and lingering memories, therefore recognition and conditioned behaviors, and so forth. But when you come to spirit monads, there we get more. There we get reasoning. And what he does is to distinguish two kinds of reasoning that we have. There are, first of all, truths of fact that we can know, and there are truths of reason that we can know. Truths of fact are contingent. That is to say, they're about what happens successively, and our awareness of them accordingly depends on these successive events of which we have this inner awareness. So truths of fact are contingent, whereas truths of reason are logically necessary truths. Logically necessary truths that have the logical form of the laws of thought. A equals A equals non-A. Okay. Now, truths of fact depend on the law of sufficient reason, whereas truths of reason depend on the law of non-contradiction. Okay, that distinction. The distinction between truths of fact and truths of reason is, I think, pretty clear. We make some factual assertions. Yeah. Leibniz was a German who wrote in French